Okay, so today we're going to use the unit circle that we made yesterday to help us with this. So on the unit circle that you guys made yesterday, we talked about how every point is what? Every point is cosine and sine. So that's where you have it on your sheet. So the points on a unit circle are given as the cosine of theta and the sine of theta. So remember, every point is an x and a y. So your cosine is x, your sine is y. And we did talk yesterday about where values are positive and negative. So the cosine is the x value, the sine is the y. We did write down where the y's were positive and where the x's were positive. This is just a quick way to remember it. So each quadrant has a positive or negative value assigned to each function. One way you can remember that is this acronym, All Students Take Classes. So in quadrant 1, you're going to see all of the trig functions are positive. In quadrant 2, it's only the sine. In quadrant 3, it's the tangent. And in quadrant 4, it's the cosine. So usually when we do this, I'll just set up like a 4 quadrant, and we'll say all students take classes. You start in 1 and then you go around. All students take classes. The all actually stands for all of the trig functions. The students stands for sine. The sine is positive. The t is your tangent. And the c is your cosine. So again, you have to remember this is where the values are positive. So if sine is positive in quadrant 2, that means everything else is negative. If tangent is positive in quadrant 3, the other two values are negative. Okay? Alright, so on the front page, we are going to be using our unit circle. This says find the exact value of each trig function, and you are going to be able to use your unit circle on this. So you should have that out. Here's our unit circle. Alright, so for part A, we are going to find the cosine of 225 degrees. So when they're asking you to find the cosine of 225 degrees, what they're asking you to find is a value. The cosine is related to the x, so you are going to find the x value at 225 degrees. So I want you to go on your unit circle, find the x value, and then write it down. So you got to use your unit circle from yesterday. Okay, if you're looking for 225 degrees, where did you find it? In what quadrant? Up. Okay, and then what was your x coordinate? Negative root 2 over 2. Okay, so that is going to be your final answer. Okay, so at 225, negative root 2 over 2 is your x value. That is your final answer. What's that? If it's cosine, you are looking only for x. Yep. For part B, we're going to find the exact value of the sine of 315 degrees. So if it's the sine value, we just said how the sine is the y. So we're going to find the y value at 315. So I want want you to find that on your unit circle and write it down. All right, so then what is your y value at 315? Yep, negative root 2 over 2. All right. So anytime it's cosine, you find the x value. Anytime it's sine, you find the y. The next value we're going to find is the tangent of 5 pi over 6. So remember from yesterday, to find the tangent, what do we have to do? Let's look at the bottom of our unit circle. What did it say the tangent was equal to? Yep, so the tangent is sine divided by cosine, or y divided by x. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to use the point at 5 pi over 6. So find 5 pi over 6 on your unit circle, and then write down your point. If you're looking for 5 pi over 6, is 5 6 greater than 1 or less than 1? Less than 1, right? Because the bottom number is 6 and 5 is less than that. Okay, so what you're going to do is you are going to write down your point at 5 pi over 6. So you have negative root 3 over 2, positive 1/2. Okay, so in order to find your in order to find your tangent, if this is your x and this is your y, okay, you just have to do y divided by x. When you're dividing two fractions, 1/2 divided by negative root 3 over 2, what's the rule with dividing fractions? Yeah, so we're just going to keep, change, and flip. Okay, so when you're doing this out, you can skip right to the multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay. All right, and then we're going to simplify. So the 2's are going to cancel. You have negative 1 over root 3. You don't want to leave it like that. So what are you going to do? Right, yep, we're going to rationalize. Okay, so we're going to multiply by root 3 over root 3. So negative 1 times root 3 is negative root 3. Root 3 multiplied by itself is going to be 3. So this is your value for the tangent. Okay, so you're either finding an x value, a y value, okay, a y divided by x value over. We'll keep exploring. Okay, for the next one, the tangent of 180, I want you guys to find what that value is. All right, so what did you guys get? What is the point at 180 degrees? So if your point is negative 1, 0, and you're doing y divided by x, 0 over negative 1 is 0. Okay, that's definitely something you can do with your so the last one we're going to do on page 1, the grand finale, is the secant of 4 pi over 3. Do we remember what's special about the secant? It's related to what function? Okay, so how is it related to the cosine? So reciprocals. So not the inverse. We will talk about inverses. And not the opposite, because opposites are like positive and negative. So this is the reciprocal of the cosine. So what we can do is we can find what the value is of the cosine, and then we can just flip that value. Okay, so the cosine at 4 pi over 3, we'll find that on our unit circle. So 4 over 3, that is bigger than 1, so 4 pi over 3, which one's your cosine, your x or your y? The x. So the cosine is negative 1/2. So to find the secant, all you do is you flip it. So the secant of 4 pi over 3 is going to be what? Yep, and what is negative 2 over 1? Negative 2. So don't keep it over 1, have it simplified. Okay, so you're going to flip. Okay, and simplify. Okay, we're going to flip it and simplify. The reason why I say simplify, a few reasons. 1, we're not going to keep it over 1. 2, when you flip it, you might have a radical on the bottom, and if you have that, then you're going to have to rationalize. Okay, on the back side, we are not going to be using our unit circle. Okay, so you can just flip it over so it's the special triangle side. Okay, so we are not going to use the unit circle here. Because we are going to be using reference angles. What we are going to do is when we're not using the unit circle, do you guys remember what part of the unit circle I told you are going to have memorized? Yes. I'm going to give you a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper, we're going to write out the first quadrant, okay, from memory. So don't, I know you're going to be tempted, but don't look at your unit circle. This is the first step in practicing to see if we can do that unit circle quiz that's coming up. Okay, so I'm going to draw out a quadrant 1 for you, and it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? Nope. Okay, so all we're going to do is we're going to draw the first quadrant. And so on your piece of paper, we're just going to make the first quadrant. It's okay if it's not perfect. And then we're going to draw a 30-degree, 45-degree, 60-degree. Okay, so we have the degrees. You're going to do the radians, and you're going to do all of the points here. Okay, we should be able to do this in less than 2 minutes. Next week, we'll be able to do it in seconds. So think about what were some of the patterns we talked about yesterday. Points and the radians. Remember, there is something we said that all of the points have. What do all of the points have? Well, all the points points at 30, 45, and 60? What's all those points at? They're all fractions with, yeah, they're all positive. Yeah, they all have 2 where? Yep, so the first thing I would do is I would just make all of these with a denominator of 2. That's something we talked about yesterday. Okay, we talked about how the radius is 1, so that makes this 1, 0, and that makes this 0, 1. And then do you guys remember the pattern going up here? Yeah, it has the 3, 2, 1, or if you start at 0, the square root of 0 is 0, square root of 1 is 1, square root of 2 is a decimal, so we keep it, square root of 3. Okay, and then what about this side? Yeah, same thing, but now 1, root 2, root 3. Okay, and then we're going to put in the radians. So it's 0, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, pi over 2. Okay, if that's not something we can do easily, that's probably something we're going to want to practice. Okay? Alright, so we are going to use this to help us. When you are doing this on your homework, there are 3 steps. Okay, in order for you to get full credit, you are going to have to write out these 3 steps. This is really going to help you cement some of those values into your memory to make it easier as we go deeper into the trigonometric universe. Okay, so make sure that you are taking your time to do this. Alright, so for A, we have 330 degrees. Okay, these 3 steps are also going to be the same way on your quiz when you take it eventually. So our first step is going to be to graph that angle and find the reference angle. So if you have 330 degrees, we always start at the initial side. Okay, and 330 degrees is going to have the terminal side in what quadrant? Yep, it's going to end up in quadrant 4. Okay, so you do need to draw your angle for each one. Your theta is 330. If your angle is 330, what is your reference angle? What is it? 30. No. This one right here. Alright, so this is in quadrant 4. We are going to use that in a little bit. So step 1, you're going to draw your angle, you're going to identify your reference angle. For step 2, it says find the sine, cosine, and tangent of the reference angle. So what you're going to write out is the sine of 30, the cosine of 30, and the tangent of 30. Okay? The sine of 30, the cosine of 30, and the tangent of 30, because that's your reference angle. So until you have them memorized, you're going to be using this. So at 30 degrees, the sine is which one? 1/2. It's your y. Your sine is your y. Okay, so the sine is 1/2. What's the cosine? 3/2. Okay, and then, so this is your y, this is your x, and your tangent is y divided by x. So whenever you're doing your tangent, you can just do 1/2 divided by √3/2. If you want to just start and do 1/2 multiplied by the reciprocal, you can do that. Like you don't have to write out the division and then the multiplication. Okay, so go ahead and simplify that. Okay, so what'd you guys get for tangent? Root 3 over 3. Good. So you have 1 over root 3, and then you have to rationalize. Good. So we have root 3 over 3. All right. Your last step is just to adjust for your quadrant. The reason why it says if needed is if it's in quadrant 1, these are going to match. And if they're in quadrant 1, you don't have to write out the same thing again, the exact same thing. But that's going to be rare. So what you need to find is the sine of 330, the cosine of 330, and the tangent of 330. So 330 is in quadrant 4. So if we use all students take classes, because this is in quadrant 4, where you have C, that means the cosine is what? Yes. If the cosine is positive, that means the rest of your values are negative. Okay, so the cosine is the only one that's going to be positive here. The rest of them are going to change to negatives. Okay, so you adjust for the quadrant. If it's quadrant 4, cosine is positive. All we're going to do is look at our values from step 2 and convert them. So the sine becomes a negative 1/2. The cosine is positive, so it stays root 3 over 2. And the tangent is negative root 3 over 3. All right, so your adjustment is based on the quadrant of your angle here. That's why we're drawing it out, okay? All right, and then if you're doing this and then you want to check when you're done, you are welcome to check that, but make sure you're doing this without it. So if you look at 330, see how the y is negative, the x is positive, and then if you were to divide them, you get negative root 3 over 3. Okay? The reason why we're using the reference angle is we'll not always have to use a circle to find things, so we use the reference angle method a lot in upper level mathematics. Okay, so for B, the first thing I want you to do is I just want you to draw that angle, and then I want you to do step 2 as well. Okay, so step 1, draw your angle. Step 2, we're going to find the sine, the cosine, and the tangent of whatever your reference angle is. Okay, so where is 270? Well, yeah, straight down here, right? This is 180. What's 180 plus 90? 270. Yeah, so this one doesn't have a quadrant, so this one's special. Okay, but so your reference angle is what? Yep. Okay, so if your reference angle is 90, we're going to find the cosine of 90, the sine of 90, the tangent of 90. There's no quadrant. That means we are going to do something different with this one, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I want you to find the sine, the cosine, and the tangent of 30. So you guys got to draw your reference angles. You got it here. And then down. Okay, there. When you guys are writing this out, your sine, your cosine, and tangent, you need to put the 90 here. 90, 90, 90. Okay, so at 90 degrees, what is the point? So let's look. At 90 degrees, what's your point? 0, 1. Okay, so for 90 degrees, the y value is 1, the cosine is 0. What happens when you do 1 divided by 0? What does that equal?
Nothing.
Not nothing. What do we call it? It's undefined. Okay, so it's undefined. If 0's on top, it's 0. Okay, if 0's on bottom, it's undefined. Okay, and again, you need to do all 3 steps for this. I will not give you all of your points if you don't write out your 3 steps. Okay, and then we're going to find the sine of 270, the cosine of 270, and the tangent of 270. Okay, so because there's a no quadrant, we're going to look and see what part of the axis your value is on. So look at 270 here. 270 is on the negative y-axis. So 270 is on the negative side of the y-axis. And this can happen with both axes. Could be on the positive side of an axis, could be on the negative side of an axis. Okay, because this is on the negative side of the y-axis, what do you guys think that means? Well, yep, your y value is going to be negative. So the y value correlates to what? So the sine, which is the y value, is negative. And the rest, yep, this is the same, which is positive. Okay, and then just understand that sometimes it might be something stays positive and then the rest are negative. Just depends on what you have. Okay, so the sine is negative, so it becomes -1. 0 is going to stay 0, and then this is going to stay undefined. All right. Now we've done 2 with degrees. You can also have a value that's radians. You can also have a value that's in negatives. So I want you to go ahead and graph this one. You got this. -3 pi over 4. Where is that going to go? All right, and then do your reference angle. If it's given in radians, make sure your reference angle is in radians. So adjust that if you need to. Make sure you do all 3 steps for all of them. If you guys got your full credit on your homework, okay. So if you have -3 pi over 4, what was your reference angle? Pi over 4 is correct. So if you're doing -3 pi over 4, you're counting by pi over 4. 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4. And it's going in this direction. So your reference angle, again, if it's given in radians, it has to be in radians. So your reference angle is pi over 4. What quadrant did this end up in? Quadrant what? Quadrant 3. Yep. So this is your first step. This is your second step. The sine of pi over 4, the cosine of pi over 4, and the tangent of pi over 4 is what we're going to do next. Okay, and then your last step will be adjusting, and when you do your last step, you write this value, -3 pi over 4, your cosine, the sine, and your tangent. With the negative, usually hold it, and then mark it down. I still, it's not. Okay, so at pi over 4, what is your y value? √2/2. Eventually, you guys are not going to have to look at your first quadrant, but wherever you're using the first quadrant. Okay, so the y value is √2/2. The x value is √2/2. And when you're finding tangent, when you're finding the y divided by the x, it's the same thing divided by itself. What do you get? 1. Okay, so you don't even have to write out for the one that's 1. You don't have to write that out. The other ones you will have to do some solving, but when you're dividing anything by itself, those cancel to make 1. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to write the work out for the pi over 4. All right, now we're going to make the adjustment. So if it's in quadrant 3, we think all students take classes. So the t means the tangent is what? Positive. Okay, so all the rest are negative. So if the tan is positive, if it's 1 here, this is going to be 1. This becomes a -√2/2, and this becomes -√2/2. Okay, so the ones that are the 3 steps are going to be your reference angle problems. Okay, in just a moment, you will get your homework that I put on a worksheet. So on your worksheet, you're doing 10 through 17 and 27 through 34. There is another reminder here that any reference angle problems, okay, they need to have all 3 steps. Okay, you've been told that at least 5 times today. If you want to do it on this sheet, you can. If you want a separate sheet of paper, you can do that as well. So the reference angle problems are the ones that say use a reference angle to find the exact value of sine, cosine, and tangent. So that's going to be 14, 15, 16, 17. And then this one says to use a reference angle as well. Those are your 3 steps. Okay, the 3 steps are drawing the angle to find the reference angle, adjusting the sines, or sorry, step 2 is finding the sine, cosine, and tangent of reference angle, and then adjusting the sines for your quadrant. When it says use a unit circle, you can use your unit circle for those. So if you want to knock those out first and put them right on your paper, you can. Okay, and then this is June Monday in Google Classroom, 7:40. And just as another reminder, remember all of your Chapter 11 work is mandatory. Yes, just make sure you turn it both. Okay? So make sure you turn in your work paper as well.